Got 20 seconds. Come on, man, to go.
Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Good. Get those knees up. Explode. Good. Explode. Let's go. Up.
Rock forward. Let's go. One more. Go.
You are listening to the Fight Strength Podcast with your hosts, Phil Daru and Jason Burgos.
Hello there, fighting and fitness fans, and thank you for listening to the 10th and latest episode of the Fight Strength Podcast. I am Jason Burgos, senior editor for MMAsucker.com and member of the Mixed Martial Arts Journalists Association, and I am here with my co-host, strength and conditioning coach to a plethora of star fighters and champions at American Top Team, including this week's guest, the bearded dynamo of expert training analysis, the Phil Daru. Phil, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm seeing what you're doing nowadays. You're getting a little bit big for me, going on other podcasts and things like that, doing your thing.
I'm trying to reach your love. I'm trying to, make it a dual threat instead of just a one-man threat and a backup plan.
Yeah. So Mixed Martial Arts Journalists Association. Let me get a little bit of rundown on that real quick. What's that about?
It's pretty much an association of journalists that are writing MMA. We're trying to organized, so for better treatment, trying to get professionalism throughout the ranks, trying to tighten things up and just become a respected fraternity of writers for the niche sport that is mixed martial arts.
I like it. Doing big things, brother. That's good.
And we're gonna have on, listeners, one of my co-members of the association in Chuck Mindenhall in a few weeks, so that's gonna be pretty good. I'm gonna have one of my squad up on here. Bam! What do you think about that?
I'm cool with it. That's good. I like Chuck. I like what he does. It's all good.
All right. Now, before we get into any specific show details, I want to mention for the last time the survey we have pinned to our Facebook and Twitter pages. Fight Strength _ is our Twitter page. We are just looking for some feedback from you guys to make the show that much better. Plus, by filling it out, which will take really a minute or two tops, you will be entered in for a chance to win a free T-shirt for 8 Man Strong, which is pretty cool. Who doesn't want free stuff? Also, don't forget to check out our previous episodes on iTunes, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, YouTube, and now, which is big news for us, in the 10th episode of the show, we are now going to be streaming on iHeartRadio. We're everywhere, yo. It's like a Fight Strength invasion with a 5-point death touch.
Oh, snap. You can't get rid of us. It's over now.
No, it's coming. The world domination is next. This week's show is sponsored by Daru Strong Training Systems. If you want to find ways to live a stronger and healthier life like a high-level athlete, then you need to learn more about this training system. Phil, tell the listeners a bit about how they can find out more about your system.
Okay, so you can basically go on to DaruStrong.com, check out all of my bio, what I do as far as my systems go, my methods, my quote-unquote philosophy, if you would say. And, give me a shout. Go ahead and email me, ask me questions. Be glad to answer them.
And now tonight we have on a veteran of many wars in the UFC and one of the more exciting fighters to watch on the roster, and that is the Diamond, Dustin Poirier. But before we bring on Dustin, we first have to get into some Ask Daru questions, because it's one of the key parts and most popular parts of the show for our resident expert, Mr. Daru. So our first question comes from Sid Champagne from Atlanta. He asks, what are some tips on building strength while staying lean?
Okay. And Sydney is one of my boys that used to train with me, was one of my coaches that I had in my facility. So what's up, Sydney?
Is he really last name Champagne?
Oh, yeah, man.
Wow,
Ain't that something? Ain't that something?
He's a fancy guy.
That's some real elegant shit right there. Let me just tell you. But seriously, though, in all retrospect, trying to stay lean and gaining maximal strength is very difficult to do. But I'm not saying that it's impossible, but you will not develop absolute strength without gaining a bit of size due to the fact that your joints may not be able to take the load that's pressed upon it, right? So you still can initiate some functional strength like core and posterior chain strength, contralateral stability, and strength endurance. But don't get me wrong, I know a lot of strong dudes that are relatively lean and have good aesthetics. That's not what I'm saying. The problem becomes with the caloric intake. If you're not trying to stay lean or to get lean, you must either be in a hypocaloric or isocaloric state to maintain that size. and not, get a little bit of adipose on you, which will basically enable functional energy to produce force and initiate those higher levels of performance output. Now, basically, my advice would be to focus on work capacity and core strength. Keep your fats high on non-training days, and then your carbs a bit higher on high-intensity training days. You want to work up from a rep range of 5 to 8 reps, and then always manage your fatigue from there.
Now, could you clear this up? Because I had. Oh no, if you got more to say, please keep it going.
No, go ahead. I'll answer.
I was gonna ask. Now the difference between lean and strength, it's a difference between if you want to get lean, it's more about a higher level of reps, and then if you want to get strong and bigger, it's more about the amount of weight you're lifting, right? Or no?
Somewhat. So if you're trying to gain maximal hypertrophy, you have to stay in a rep range of 6 to 12 repetitions. Anything more than that, and we're talking more endurance-based, 12 to 20 reps or 13 to 20 reps, things like that. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to gain maximal strength, we're talking about absolute 1RM strength, and you have to make sure that you're loading the bar with a high intensity of 85 to 100% of 1RM max effort. So with that base of intensity, you'll not be able to do a high enough volume to incorporate hypertrophy. Now, what you're getting back to the initial question, to get lean, there's multiple ways of doing that, but the main way to do that is get in a hypocaloric state to bring down your calorie consumption more than what you are doing or less than what you are doing in the weight room. So basically, doing more work and eating less. Now, it sounds somewhat, simple, and in cases it may be, but the main problem is that people try to do too many things at once, right? And if you're trying to gain strength, you need to be in a somewhat of a hypercaloric state, which is basically eating more calories, making sure that you have enough fuel to structure your intensity and making sure you're maintaining that good level of body weight to withstand the loads put upon you, right? So if I'm trying to go max effort, there's no possible way that I can sit around here at 4%, 5%, 6% body fat because my joints will ache, my body will feel really dry. I just won't be able to have the energy to have that high intensity output. That's why athletes in general need to stay around 10 to 12% body fat, unless they want to be, a model or, do a physique show or something like that.
Now, I actually thought about this question during the week. I wanted to ask you, but it's perfect that it came up now because you bring up caloric and hypercaloric. Now, for you do powerlifting. You're into the powerlifting competition. What is your calorie intake like? And that, and also when let's say you have your regular calorie intake when you're doing lifting that day. Let's say you're off lifting for a day. Do you diminish your calorie intake, or do you have to keep a steady amount throughout lifting day or not?
Well, there's several ways to go about doing this. Now, me being who I am and being busy as I am, I don't really have enough time to get as much food in as I should be putting in. Yeah. If I had it my way, I would at least eat 3,000 calories a day, due to the fact that how I train is very highly intense and it's for a longer duration. Now, other than that, I believe that if you're having an off day, if you're trying to maintain a good level of body fat, right? If you're trying to make sure that you're not getting too much adipose and you're looking sloppy, then you can bring down your calories in the course of your fuel sources. So bring your carbohydrates down that day that you're not training because you're not utilizing them in the gym. So there's no real need for that energy source. You would heighten up the fats to take in place of those carbohydrates. So when your carbs are high, monetarily, your fats will be low. And when your fats are high, your carbs are low. And that's how you can monitor your energy levels and stay satiated, along with making sure that you have good neural capacity, good neural drive, and you're not wasting away muscle tissue. And then always protein is a major source. You always want to keep some high level, high quality proteins in, just for the breakdown, so the muscles don't break down as adequately, and then also to recover from your training sessions the day before.
So suffice to say, if I'm lifting, I can have a pepperoni pizza, and if I'm not lifting, I just have the pepperoni.
No, not at all. But I'm gonna tell you this. Though. If I have a hard training session and like I know that, let's say I intermittent fasted. Now I don't recommend this, but Dan John is one of my guys that I actually look up to and listen to a lot. He's a strength and conditioning coach, Highland Games champion athlete. He actually likes to do intermittent fasting before he trains. He'll train heavy and hard, and then he'll go ahead and he'll pretty much, I don't want to say gorge, but he'll have a good time on some pizza and some chicken wings and some beer and things like that.
Wow, I like
but
this.
Listen, not you though, not you. Come on, son. But to be honest, I don't mind it. It just has to be monitored and very seldom. You don't want to do this all the time.
Right. All right. Now, for our second question from Heaney Connor 95 on Instagram, they ask, in a group setting where you have 3 5-minute round fighters and championship 5-minute round fighters, championship round fighter and your regular, do you alter the duration of your conditioning, or do you just make sure you're hitting the correct energy system, I guess, in this group atmosphere?
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. It's something that I think that needs to be addressed. But so basically, when I'm developing a program for a fighter, I want to make sure we get all of the details ironed out beforehand, before we even start camp, before even we start thinking about camp. If it's a championship fight, our systems remain the same and the periodization model remains constant. Once we start to initiate more aerobic work by the way of like conditioning circuits, then that's when each individual time frame becomes simulated in nature. If I have a group of fighters, some have 3 rounds, some have 5, I make sure to alter the time they are working to fully work on the specificity of the duration of the fight. When we're getting closer to competition, especially in the fight game, all preparations must equal out to the full simulation of the competition. And now that's meaning if you're fighting 5 5-minute rounds, then you train for 5 5-minute rounds, not 6, not 8, not 10, etc.
Yeah, you hear so many guys say that. Like, oh, I can go 15 5 minutes when I'm training. It's like, and I always wonder why. That's not what you're going to do. I get it's great cardio-wise, but why?
So here's the thing. Because if you do decide to do this, you will alter your pace in the fight itself. And ultimately start too slow or even too fast, depending on the inadequacy of the suboptimal duration of the practice in preparation. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I see a lot of guys like, oh man, I'm doing, and even boxing used to do this a lot too, is I'm fighting 10 rounds. I need to do 20 rounds and double it. Yeah. Now the problem with that is you can probably get away with that in, if you're further away, maybe out of camp or 12 weeks out, something like that. But the closer you get to your competition, the more specificity becomes very vital, right? So if you do have a fight, you want to make sure, especially when you're about, 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out, you want to make sure that your conditioning and the time that you're conditioning is adequately sufficient for that time that you're going to fight or the time that you're going to do your competition. And that goes for jiu-jitsu matches and grappling tournaments and wrestling matches and things like that. You want to make sure that you're doing that right on the way. And you want to also alter or vary your intensity levels. So if it has to be, for a circuit, if you're doing high lactic circuit where you're going to be doing more than 30 seconds of work, you're going to be having to make sure that you're going to recover from that. And the same thing goes for an anaerobic circuit where you're doing 10 to 15 seconds tops on each exercise for that circuit. You want to make sure that you're monitoring that as well, and never do 2 energy systems in one day. You always want to alter that.
Fair enough. Now I would like to welcome on our guest. He is a veteran of 20 UFC and WEC fights and has wins over notable fighters like Joe Duffy, Jim Miller, and the UFC featherweight champion Max Holloway. He's one of the rare fighters to have had success in 2 weight classes at the very highest sublevels, and he is without a doubt a fan favorite for his exciting style as he has 16 finishes in his 21 wins. He's a star of American Top Team. That man is Dustin Poirier. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, Dustin.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. What's going on?
All right, now DP, I know we're starting up our 8-week camp, but let's take it back to Lafayette a little bit and tell the listeners a brief background and your story on how it all got started.
This just my whole MMA pursuit of gold, or just what we talking about?
Everything from, when you started to, as far as like mixed martial arts, why you got started in it, and, as far as how you came up in the sport.
I think so when I was younger in middle school, I used to wrestle and had a couple buddies that boxed. So I started boxing with them when I was young, and then, kept getting in trouble, kept getting kicked out of schools and stuff like that. And then when I was about 17, 18, I started doing jiu-jitsu and kickboxing at a local gym in Lafayette, Louisiana. And when I was 18, I fought my first amateur fight back in 2007. And dude, it's been a wrap since then. I fought 9 amateur fights, and I think I have 27 or 26 pro fights now. So it's just, dude, it was one step at a time, wrestling, boxing, and doing jiu-jitsu, and then started to do judo and kickbox, and put it all together, started fighting for fun. And it turned into an even bigger drive and passion, and then I started fighting for money, and now here I am, man.
Yeah, so it all correlated together, got all the puzzles together for you. Now, as far as like some fighters that you looked up to while you were coming up, who give me some names, throw me some names that you used to look up to on the come up.
Chuck Liddell, Forrest Griffin, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, Dan Henderson. I was a huge BJ Penn fan. Pretty much all the legends, man.
Yeah, I hear you. That's what's up, man.
So, most fans know how the first fight with Eddie Alvarez ended with the illegal knees and everything. And I'm hoping you can enlighten fans a little bit, maybe, on how things play out in the weeks and after that in terms of how, a little maybe behind the scenes sort of thing. Despite the fan interest, the UFC went in a different direction with Alvarez's next opponent. Did anyone like Dana White or Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, did they tell you anything about possibly a rematch being likely? Did you have to really push hard for it, or, what was the vibe like from the UFC brass leading up to them eventually going to make Alvarez and Gaethje instead of having like a fight that the fans wanted to see you two rematch?
After that fight happened, I didn't really talk to those guys from the UFC until we did the fighter summit or whatever in Vegas, when they brought everybody out to do all that stuff. And when I spoke to him then, it was like it was on track to be, we were going to rematch Eddie's camp, and he wanted it. The UFC wanted it. Obviously, I wanted it. And that's what I thought was going to happen, That's what the plan was.
And do you feel like, did maybe Eddie Alvarez just avoid it, or like why do you think they didn't make it? I mean, why would you not listen to the fans or a fighter, especially since it was a good fight?
I'm not sure why the UFC did it, but I know why Eddie did it, it's a better style up. Yeah, we all know why he did it, and not only trying to be like a hothead or sound like a tough guy right here on the phone. I mean, he did it because it's better for his career. He's not going to get his ass whipped. He's going to get a TV show, or he might get his ass whipped, but he has a better chance with this guy. This guy's going to stand in front of him, and it'll be 50-50, whoever lands first in this fight. But the guy's not going to finesse him like I finessed him, But anyway, he's got a better stylistic matchup with this guy. He's going to probably main event a card, and he's going to have the whole season of this show to boost his brand and for him to make money. So it was I respect that on a business note. He did what he had to do to make more money and probably get a win or a better style matchup for him.
Yeah.
The key fallout from the fight, beyond being ruled no contest, is you were deprived of the possibility to get a win bonus. In the age of Reebok payouts, could you give us a view into how losing out on that money affects you financially in the weeks and months after fight, if it does at all?
Really the financial loss, you can't put it on a scale or count it, because the fight would have continued. I would have beat Eddie. I could have been one fight away from a title shot, which, no telling how much money could have possibly been made. And not only my win bonus so I didn't get my win bonus, obviously, but not only that, the fight would have been fight of the night. I know it. Everybody who was there knows it. I felt the energy with the crowd. Everybody, if we'd have fought another round, we would have got fight of the night. So there's another 50 going. So I lost 6 figures.
Wow. Now
on a fight that I was winning.
Yeah.
That's where it hurts. It's one thing to lose or make a mistake in the fight, and that's on me. I go home and I say, all right, what did I do wrong? And back to the drawing board. But this is a fight where I was winning 9 minutes of the fight, and then something crazy happens, and now I don't get paid.
And there's many times in UFC's history that they've been willing to give people bonuses or portions of the bonus. Did you think that might be a possibility where you're surprised they didn't at least try to, help either of you guys out because it was just a weird situation that it ended like that?
I thought they were going to, but this is a different era with the new owners and stuff. I really believe if Lorenzo was calling the shots like he used to, I would have got paid.
Yeah. Now football is a huge sport in America, and then so you're the subject of CTE is a big story. You're one of the more fighters to watch on the roster. You like to mix it up. I know whenever you fight, I'm a big fan. I always look forward to your fights. Now, 26 fights into your professional fighting career. Is that something that ever crosses your mind and makes you, ponder, like maybe just leaving the sport early because you have all these studies that are coming out about it? I mean, despite you still being a very young man with a lot of prime years ahead of you, does that all this news about CTE ever, make you wonder about where you want to go in the next few years?
I don't really think about it too much. If I was forgetting stuff or stuttering, or mumbling all the time, then I'd be worried. But I feel pretty good, and I'm one of the guys who really takes time to let their brain heal and doesn't train like a maniac with sparring and stuff like that. I used to when I was a little bit younger. I used to go crazy every day, but and even with the supplements and the studies done nowadays, I'm after sparring days. I use CBD. Turmeric, curcumin, all kinds of stuff, a lot of fish oils, all kinds of strong anti-inflammatories and antioxidants and stuff like that I use after training sessions. After hard training sessions, I double it.
Yep.
I kind of, I was thinking your thoughts too. I mean, do you feel maybe fortunate you had the bad luck, though, of your career ending early because of concussion? Do you almost feel fortunate that was discovered and you maybe didn't have to take any more chances out there? I
mean, fortunate is a big word to say because at the end of the day, I still wish that I could still compete. Yeah. But, doing what I'm doing now, working with guys like Dustin, it fills the void, and the coaching aspect of it helps me stay in the sport. But yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with, and like Dustin says, I do have some memory loss, and I do, make sure I try to, and I was just talking about this with my family today. I at some points I want to get words out and I can't articulate it the way I want to, because of the fact of the head trauma that I've, that's happened over the years. 8 concussions is a lot for a 28-year-old man. So for me, seeing the studies, it doesn't surprise me. I'm not saying that I would have had it any other way. When the neurologist was telling me that, I needed to stop, well, I still had to think about it. It still was crossing my mind like, I could still go, but I have to be smart. I have to think about my family, and I made the right decision. And now I'm working with, world champions, and guys that are the best in the world, and girls that are the best in the world. So I have it no other way. But, as far as Dustin goes, man, let us know, what's the plans for the rest of the year and any other side projects that you may have. And the Everlast project going, just give us some insight, man. What's going on?
All right. I want to touch back on that last question before I jump into what's going on. Like me as a person, man, I just want to, whoever's listening, let everybody know, like, I saw those studies and stuff like that started coming out years ago. And obviously playing football and fighting, we get hit in the head a lot. A lot of the studies I read up on was on football players and ways that they recover and stuff like that for brain health. But man, dude, this body is just I'm a war horse, bro. Before I had my daughter, I didn't care. I was standing in the pocket. I didn't care what would happen. But now that I have a daughter, it's not even so much about my well-being. I used to not really care. It's about her. I want to be there for her. That's what kind of scares me in the back of my head is like in the future, I want to be there when she gets married, when she has kids. I want to be alert and in the moment of that. That's what the long term is what I think about now that I get older and I have a daughter, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, man. But what's going on in Louisiana is I opened a nice personal gym. I teamed up with Everlast, and they outfitted the whole place. I have a few sponsors as well in South Louisiana: Dino's Pizza, Minute Med Walk-In Clinic, Don's Wholesale, Planet Nutrition. A bunch of guys jumped on board that are local businesses in Louisiana that are very successful and wanted to get behind this. And we opened up a private. You know, Tim Crater was he owns Gladiators Academy of Lafayette. He was a huge person in this whole deal as well. He gave me a huge warehouse space. He's not charging me overhead. And I just outfitted the whole place with Everlast and a couple sponsors. We did it all top notch, man. We have a ring in there. We have crazy nice bag racks and good mats. And I don't charge anybody $1 to train there. It's the Diamond Training Center. It's invite only. So, you know, you just have to be a decent fighter and you're welcome to come there. We don't really take a whole lot of amateurs unless I see you fighting. I'm like, all right, this kid's good, you know, because I don't want anybody in there doing crazy stuff and hurting people or falling, trying to take people down and stuff. You know, crazy stuff happens. So I want experienced guys in there. And the way I run it, it's a place of knowledge, man. It's like a laboratory. Nobody's above anybody. There's no teacher there. Nobody's the coach. Nobody's the head guy. Obviously, we get together and come up with tactics and train styles and drill a lot, do a lot of reps of stuff. But nobody's above anybody in there. We all work together. We kind of just go in there and have a rough draft. We just whatever kind of training session we just want to do, we just do it. You know, it's no plan. Man, it's a lot of fun. But in Louisiana, I have a few buddies who have gyms and they have regular classes. They have jiu-jitsu classes, boxing, kickboxing. You know, all the disciplines that it takes to do mixed martial arts. You can get the training in Lafayette, Louisiana from my buddies' gyms, but my place is where all the guys meet from all the other gyms and we just put it all together. I'm really excited about it.
You know, the next question I'm going to ask you is, where's the weights at? Because you know I'm coming to Lafayette and we're going to be getting it in. You know that.
Man, let's get it, bro. On it actually jumped in on the deal too. We got some battle ropes, kettlebells, maces, clubs, some real badass ballistic balls, you know, slam balls and stuff. So we got a nice little weight section over there.
Awesome, man.
While researching you, I discovered the story about your long-term plans to, you know, start selling your Reebok fight kits on eBay and give the proceeds to the Second Harvest Food Bank of Lafayette, Louisiana. Firstly, that is awesome, and you are damn good people. Second, could you tell listeners how you got involved with this particular organization, and as well as how could they donate, you know, if they're in the region, to that cause?
Sure. So it just started as me and my wife were sitting down. We went to like Target or somewhere and bought these plastic drawers just so I can keep a bunch of training clothes in that I should have thrown away. I keep stuff too long. I'm like a hoarder with this training stuff. And I got shirts that you can wash 10 times in a row and they still stink. You know, I got to start throwing stuff away. But anyway, one of the drawers were filled with old fight stuff, like old fight shorts with blood on them and hand wraps and stuff. I'm like, what am I keeping all this for? You know, 20 fights ago, it was cool. Yeah. But now you have 20 pairs of bloody shorts and hand wraps. It's not cool anymore, you know? It's like, it's kind of gross. So I said, well, instead of just sitting here, what can I do? I saw a headline about somebody auctioning off something or selling it. I know, like, what was it? They kind of originally sparked my interest. It might have been Cyborg sold her shoes for like a few $1,000, her walkout shoes, Reebok shoes. I was like, man, that's nuts. Yeah. What the hell? And of course, you know, anybody can use extra money, but I'm like, well, I have all this stuff sitting around. Let me just start something new that nobody's doing. I wanted to every fight auction it off and give it the 100% of the proceeds directly to a nonprofit or something that would help out my community, my immediate community in South Louisiana. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to donating to like St. Jude's or something that's national, but I just wanted to help my immediate community. Mm-hmm. So the first one I did was the fight with Eddie, and we raised 3,000 meals for Second Harvest. Yeah, 3,000 meals, man. Those bloody shorts and gloves. We made 3,000 hot plates for people who needed it. So that's way more important than, you know, sitting in drawer for bragging rights or even money in my bank account. That felt real good to be able to do that. And I'm not working exclusively with them. So if anybody's listening to this and wants to reach out about a nonprofit or something that needs some help, my next fight, my fight kit's going to get auctioned off again, and we're going to do it again. So I'm just looking for the right organization or business to work with for the next one.
Right. If you are a fighter, what do you think you'd be doing right now? What do you think you'd be doing for a living?
And that's hard to say. Honestly, fighting has changed my life. I might be deader in jail, to tell you the truth. But
I'm gonna go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off, Dustin, but I'm gonna let everybody know that I don't know that I could see Dustin doing anything else. Yeah, Dustin is a true fighter, man. To be honest, and I don't mean to blow him up or just say all this stuff, but trust me, I'm around fighters a lot, and he's one of those guys that is a true fighter for sure.
I appreciate it, man. I live this life, I was getting into a lot of trouble, and fighting in martial arts, I know that's a lot of people's story. They say that, but it's the truth for me. I found something that I loved and that I really, really wanted to be a part of. And, I found something that I wanted to be the best at, and I was willing to do anything it took to get there. And I'm still chasing that dream right now. So, the will means nothing without the love for it, and I love it, man. Yeah. You can have all the will in the world and not love it, and you won't be, you'll never be a world champion.
Right. For sure.
Now, free agency is also another major ongoing story in the sport these days, and I don't know how many fights you have in your contract, of course, but is the possibility of free agency something that intrigues you eventually down the line, going out there and testing your value and on the open market, or, you prefer to be in the UFC?
I mean, it's cool to be in the UFC. It's the most, I want to say for sure, everybody knows that it's the most prestigious belt or title, being a world champion in the UFC there is in mixed martial arts. But, that like I said, 20 fights ago, that was cool. But now I fight for a living, and I have a daughter, and I want her to go to college, and I want to pay off my home. And being the UFC world champion is my goal, yes, but also making as much money on the way there is as well. So, we'll see what happens in the future. I have 4 fights left on my contract.
Exclusive news right there. Thank you. So that's pretty much all our questions. Is there anything you want to promote, plug, let us people know your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you have it. I know you have a ton of followers anyway. But for the fools that may not be following you yet, do you want to let them know where they can find you?
Yeah, across the board, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's my name, Dustin Poirier, all together. And I want to give a big shout out to Head Rush, man. These guys have been sponsoring me and had my back since my first fight in the UFC. It's been a long road, and they've been faithful and have been a great brand to work with. And I'm excited, to continue our work together. And also, huge shout out to Everlast. They just recently signed me. I'm part of the Everlast team. That's an honor to me. I remember being 17 years old, buying gloves and buying Everlast gloves, buying Everlast boil and bite mouth guards and stuff like that. And for this company, that I was excited to buy a pair of gloves, save my money and buy a pair of gloves. They're sending me custom gloves and, getting behind me. We're going to do some exclusive video and stuff like that. So that'll be coming out pretty soon. It's just awesome to be working with great brands like that. This has been a combat sports brand since 1910, the best of the best. Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson wore Everlast. It's just nuts to be part of that team. And the last thing I want to say is, if you want to help out with the South Louisiana Second Harvest Food Bank, you can go to give.nohunger.org, and you can donate $1 to $5 million. It don't matter. They take anything and they give it directly back to the South Louisiana community. And, it's a really good cause.
I mean, since you bring up Head Rush and Everest, how does that work now? And this, now you got the Reebok deal and stuff like that. Like, how do you get to promote and showcase that brand with all the limitations that the UFC has on you at any kind of UFC event?
That's the only thing. I've lost a few sponsors, man. I used to have a good roster. A good stable of sponsors. And, I was like a NASCAR when I fought. Dude, I wasn't a spot on my shorts that could fit another spot, fit another logo. But now with the Reebok thing, I only wear Reebok Fight Week for media and for the fight itself. So outside of that, I'm not obligated to wear Reebok. I can wear Head Rush all year round, and just Fight Week in the fight, I don't wear Head Rush. So I still work with them outside of the octagon. Obviously, I do the Arnold Classic with them every year in March. I do all kinds of stuff. We do trade shows. I travel around and do autograph stuff for them. So, yeah, man. That's what I mean about them being faithful and not bouncing and stuff like that. Because I'm sure it's rough for a lot of companies went under when Reebok came in. A lot of these fight companies went under.
Yeah, and it's too bad too, because that was what the fun thing about MMA. MMA had like a culture to it, like clothing brands and everything. And now things like you don't see Metal Militia and all these kind of brands that were really cool anymore because of this kind of thing.
Yeah, man, it's a different day and age for sure. It's definitely, but at the same time, we used to make around back reviews where you get sponsored on your shorts, you make big money when you fought on pay-per-view. And like not the lower fighters, but guys on the undercard wouldn't make as much in sponsors most of the time. But now with the Reebok thing, I think it's hurting some guys and helping some guys. So, we'll see in the next few years how it all plays out.
Phil, do you, as always, as our tradition, do you want to give your social media so everybody can look you up if they're not following you yet, if they're crazy enough not to?
Yeah, so same thing, Drew Strong for Instagram and Twitter. And then my Snapchat, like I have every day, we have videos going up. Constant content is Drew Strong 1. And then also make sure you go ahead and check out my website, drewstrong.com.
And there'll be a lot of videos Phil will be putting up of Dustin training soon. Camp should be starting soon. Also, if you haven't listened to our previous episodes, please, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, YouTube, and now starting with this episode, iHeartRadio. So please look out for us. Dustin Poirier, thank you so much. It's really truly an honor to have you on the show and get to talk to you tonight.
Thanks, man. Thank y'all for having me on. No doubt.
I am Jason Burgos. He is Phil Daru. Come back next week, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.